If now the technology works, I would like to introduce our first and very welcome speaker, guest, performative intervention by Monica Narula. Monica Narula formed Raqs Media Collective that was also already collaborating with us at Savi in 1992, along with Jabesh Bakshi and Sudraparta Sengupta. Maybe for the ones who are not familiar with the work of the collective, Raqs, the word Raqs in several languages is denoting an intensification of awareness and presence attained by whirling, turning, and being in a state of revolution. So Raqs Media Collective takes this sense to mean kinetic contemplation and restless, energetic entanglement with the world. They work across several media, and in 2001, they were co-founder of the Sarai program at CSDS New Delhi that ran for a decade, where they also edited the Sarai Reader Series. They are developing currently sources around toxicity care, and what is really for me the most interesting thing, at least right now, the luminosity of friendships with artists and publics for the forthcoming Yokohama Triennial that is opening in a few weeks. So I would like to leave it to Monica, who is really a friend of Ivana and knows her work, the whole collective knows her work. So if you're there, Monica, hi.
Hear
you. Yes, and you should be able to.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Elena, and thank you, Ivana, for inviting me today. It's an absolute privilege, really, to participate in a discussion that seems to be traversing all kinds of aspects of what Ivana's practices, but also what Ivana's practice sort of opens out in our minds. So I'm going to be showing you this set of colors, this moving field, letting you sort of make this into a kind of audio experience to just accompany me on a set of thoughts that I'm responding to when the invitation came to me. And I'm also going to begin with this invocation by a fragment of poetry by a woman called Mirabai, a 16th century princess, rebel, and mystic, who said, Gyan chausar mandi chauhat, sarat pasa sar, ya dunya mein rachi bazi, jeet bhavai har, sadhu sant mahant gyani, chalat kat pukar lal girdhar, jeevan din char. So a free translation of that would be, knowledge is a game, a dice roll. Players rise and fall. But the world declares, all bets are off because victory is defeat. Good Lord, listen, be wise. Your knowing days are numbered. So that was Mirabai. The question I want to start with is, what would happen if one placed a bet on the idea that knowing nothing, the knowledge of nothingness, is the basis of wisdom? So this is actually not a very new idea, even though it remains still surprising and unsettling. A recognition of nothingness or emptiness or shunyata, as it is in Sanskrit, is at the very heart of an ancient way of knowing and acting in the world. It expresses a gentle skepticism about three complementary proposals, which are familiar to us from both the natural sciences and some form of theological doctrine. Namely, the assertion that the universe is either one, totally knowable thing, or that the self is coincident with the cosmos, such that to be self-aware is to know the universe, the Aham Brahmasmi principle in non-dualist Vedanta, or that actually everything is just random, pointless, and chaotic. So these are kind of the three things we know, at least in this part of the world, quite clearly. But there's a fourth way, and that consists in knowing the primacy of nothingness as a binding principle. That a sense of emptiness, an awareness of the absence of substance and form, is itself generative of substance and form and knowledge. So in some traditions of knowing and acting in the Indic world, such as, which include, for example, the classical Madhyamik Buddhism and some other traditions of knowledge and spiritual questioning, this is known as Nirakar, or formless awareness. The insistency on the primacy of nothingness is not an admission of ontological failure. That is not the premise here. Neither is it epistemic collapse. Rather, it is a recognition of the fact that what binds one thing to another cannot easily be named or marked or numbered. So what joins us, what is the sticky substance between us cannot be known, cannot be named in a simple way. Its existence is signaled not by its substantiveness, but by the way in which its massive immateriality affects things. So it is the nothingness which is transformative, not its, it can't be understood or named right away. The Indian-American theoretical physicist Subramanian Chandrasekhar, he wrote about mysterious entities in his book, The Mathematical Theory of Black Holes, which was published towards the end of his life in 1992. And he said that the black holes of nature are the most perfect macroscopic objects there are in the universe. The only elements in their construction are our concepts of space and time. The business of creating objects whose elements are concepts, I think this is fantastic, is a terse but elegant way of talking about what it is that some contemporary artists do. And today, of course, I mean that very clearly in the context of Ivana's practice. It may well be said that the relationship between contemporary art practice of this order and the generation of new knowledge is not just a way of rendering information into aesthetically pleasing or challenging objects and processes. In that sense, it is not just a matter of translating research or deep archival investigation or even processing an encounter between different fields of knowledge to produce an artwork. Ultimately, it boils down to a question of giving form to things that might be unthinkable without the act of giving form to them. It is the making of the art, in this instance, that makes it possible to think a new thought, as well as the other way around. So sometimes this may mean attempting to think the unthinkable. And here the question, of course, might be, so what is this unthinkable? Having worked with, I'm quite envious of all of those of you who are in Berlin right now, because you can actually experience Ivana's work at Savvy right now. And to be honest, I've never even been to Savvy yet. It's been years since I've been to Berlin. But having worked with her over many years now, I don't know, maybe like at least 10 years, Raqs has known Ivana longer than that and has invited her to sort of think aloud in the form of her form that her practice takes in different situations. The last one that we did together was this show we curated, this exhibition at MACBA, which was called In the Open or in Stealth, which was alluding to the idea of the future, that the future will arrive in the open or in stealth. What we were interested in sort of thinking in that exhibition was, and not just in that exhibition, obviously, but like just generally, is the fact that you have to let assumptions about yourself or about the world or even sort of conceptual frameworks, you have to let them go for something else to appear. There has to be a process of dismantling of what you think of as hardened fact for there to be another kind of capacity to imagine and to think something differently. And what will appear then is probably or possibly from another cosmology, which I think definitely Ivana's work evokes, a kind of cosmological state. And what we find really interesting, and I think and I think she might also say this, is that you have to learn to unapprehend before we can apprehend things. And this is something which I think, you mentioned the Yokohama Triennale that that is going to open actually in a month or less than that now, less than a month. in Yokohama. And it is in this threshold year, it's going to be quite a threshold experience because we are not able to be there for the install. And I hope to see the exhibition itself before it closes. But this idea of how does one unapprehend so that one can not reapprehend, but just actually apprehend things is kind of at the heart of that exhibition in some ways. But anyway, to come back to In the Open or in Stealth, the last exhibition, although of course, as you would know, we've invited Ivana to be in the Triennale as well. So I hope that you all will be able to see her work, at least virtually in some time soon. But when we did In the Open or in Stealth, we had invited Shweta Sarda to sort of respond, do a reading of our questions that we were posing and our sources to the artists. And then she did a reading as much also of how the artworks were responding to what, as it were, the questions that Raqs were asking. And I want to just read a fragment here from what she wrote for a publication, and a digital publication that accompanied the exhibition, the QP. Just going to read it out, start quote here. It is interesting because it's actually a dialogue, but it's up to you to find the dialogue in it. You have to give up your impatience completely and give time. Your time when your perceptual field has been withdrawn from you. I can't tell what's in front or to my side, and I have not let go of the wall. I'm uncertain, even a bit immobilized. It has been several minutes, 5, maybe even 7 or 10. The room is utterly dark. Is there a room even? There is a small living universe inside, and it has, among others, a turtle, 2 octopuses, a spider, and several spirits that I talked with. Right when you enter the room, they don't allow you to see them. But you, your mind and your body are there, certainly. I raise my hand into the space in front, but to my eyes, my arm does not exist. I have been trying to see. I look ahead, to the side, above, below, far, near, beside. Move my head. I shift my pupils, peer, squint, turn my body, avert my gaze. Things might appear at the corner of my eye. The anticipation is intense and likely a sense of deep discomfort. You lose your sense of place in this in-between zone of being somewhere and nowhere at the same time. I start focusing on the noise outside, like a shore to this sea of dark. Amidst the slightest flickers of dancing lights that appear, many moons into the darkness, someone emerges having seen a black hole, someone else has seen God. Someone saw a swarm of fireflies, and someone swears she saw a dervish in a slow, ecstatic swirl. Ubiety is the quality or state of being in a place. In Ivana's work, Lovers Seeing Darkness, Ubiety Unknown, that is the work in the Open or in Stealth, we see darkness. No, we are in the dark, and we are also darkness. It is dark matter that turns into stars. The dark has energy, it affects the visible world. It is dark energy that is most of the universe and accelerates its expansion. Darkness is a thick ecology. Darkness mixes things, blurs their boundaries, and limits and extends. Every infinity is bounded by the one that lies next to it. Infinity is as contiguous as it is contagious. End quote. So, in the days of analog TV, when broadcast signals went on air, and I'm old enough to remember this, we would stare at what was called white noise on our TV screens. There was a strange comfort in getting lost in this white noise. It was possible to see and imagine anything and everything in its psychedelic minimalism. The electronic noise was a sort of ephemeral optic chimera, if you will. And we looked in it for patterns, and we saw ghosts instead. This dysfunctional screen became a kind of window onto a haunted landscape. What we did not know then was that in every patch of analog TV, in that analog TV white noise, there was a fraction of cosmic microwave radiation left over from the Big Bang. We did not know that what we were viewing had emanated at the beginning of time. Every explosion leaves a glowing residue, an afterglow, or a sign that manifests itself especially in the moment when the signal goes out. And as we all know, that the universe explodes all the time. Primeval explosions are still sending their shockwaves, sending off even sub-explosions, each with their own bit of radioactive charge. Sunbursts are inducing some coral species to react to the toxicity of the sun's ultraviolet waves, and in return, they are emitting their own bits of photoprotective biofluorescence, beautiful luminous patterns that end up illuminating and caring for and protecting the organism from stressful solar radiation. Someday, some astrobiologists think that this signature of biofluorescence could actually guide us to understand alien forms of life in exoplanets exposed to the harsh solar radiation of their own gigantic suns. Corals, anchored as they are in the Earth's ocean floor, lighting up in conversation with our distant sun, make it possible for us to investigate the nature of life in other worlds with their own suns. So life, the universe, the world, and the time of each day disintegrates and gets reconstituted through innumerable acts, incrementally rebuilding through luminous care. Broken minutes are mended in the afterglow of time's toxic debris, and life is a luminous autodidact. The word luminous on a day of a annular solar eclipse seems even more apposite than I was thinking before. To end soon, there's a word in Bengali called ontoshira that can be used to speak of an intrinsic flow and a pervasiveness that creates a sensory layer which flows within our daily lives. So this word, this ontoshira, is like the energy currents of the nervous system, like chi as it were. It shapes life in all its extensibility. So in the kind of highly more complicated world of the pandemic, with this kind of complicated distances, another sort of direction to turn into draw sustenance and inspiration is this intrinsic pervasive force, because it connects us to something bigger. And I think this, okay, so I'm going to just leave you to sort of make the connections between the things I'm speaking of and the things that you can imagine, and hopefully the images that are sort of emerging in your mind's eye as you're looking at the screen. But I want to end with just a little fragment from a text written by Svetlana Boym, a friend, an artist, and a philosopher, who wrote about a different kind of luminosity, a different kind of luminousness, a different kind of light in her essay, Scenography of Friendship. She said that in circumstances of extremity, the illuminations do not come from philosophical concepts, but from the uncertain, flickering, and often weak light that men and women kindle and shed over the lifespan given to them. This luminous space where men and women come out of their origins and reflect each other's sparks is the space of humaneness and friendship that sheds life on the world of appearances that we inhabit. In other words, friendship is not about having everything illuminated or obscured, but about conspiring and playing with shadows. And its goal is not enlightenment, but luminosity, not a quest for the blinding truth, but only for the occasional lucidity and honesty. And I would just want to end by saying that it is this sort of kind of echoing capacity that I find both in the friendship that one has shared with Ivana over the many years, but also in the kind of order of experience that being in her work has allowed and permitted, that both orders of luminosity have existed in my life with her. Thank you.
Monica, want to say thank you. It was extremely beautiful, and your contribution is really resonating in us. If I would be Ivana, I would be at this moment quite touched, but I am also, if I'm not her, and I hope this echoing of luminosity of friendship will in some way also begin among us with Savi, for example. And thanks for making us aware that this primacy of nothingness you're talking about is not an ontological failure, and how much the need of unlearning our usual parameters, the ones that have been inscribed in our bodies and minds from Western education, is a fundamental path. So